deleted all of my social media, and there's no way for me to tell anybody that I did that. So here we are. The hardest part about it is all the people that are in your life just because you see them online, like people that were once your friend. Those people are gone. So the only people in my life are the people that are actually like tangibly in my life. So by deleting Instagram, for example, I legitimately lost touch with hundreds of people. And that's been a little bit of an interesting experience. It makes you really wonder like how long people are supposed to be in your lives. Like before social media, people just lose touch with each other all of the time. You know, you graduate college, you move away or whatever, and they're gone. Social media has allowed us to like stay in like this pseudo acquaintance space for a very long time. What does this have to do with datamoshing? Well, so what is datamoshing, I hear you ask? Well, datamoshing basically, for the layman, is corrupting the video file. You're breaking the compression of the video to make a cool effect. You're removing the iframes, and it has something to do with B frames and P frames as well, but for our purposes, that doesn't matter. All you need to know is that we're literally corrupting the video file to make a cool effect. The easiest free way to do that is to use an old software that you can download for free, and I couldn't find any good up-to-date tutorials on how to use this software. So very quickly, I'm going to show you how to do it, and then we're going to move on to some more advanced techniques, because that is what the spiritual lesson of this video is. So the first thing you want to do is go to this website and download avidemux. I'm on Mac, so I'm going to download this OS X version. Once that's downloaded, you're going to want to drag it to applications and then open it. Now your computer is going to warn you that there's something wrong with this file. It's compromised, and I'm not telling you to do this, but if you want to use this program, you go to security settings and you tell it that it's fine. I don't know if it's fine, but it seems fine. Once it's fired up, you want to hit this configure button, and then you're going to come down here to video output and change it to MPEG ASP XVID4, and you want to change output format to AVI. Coming back up here to video output, you want to change the GOP size to 500. That's the highest it'll go. And you want to reduce the B frames to 0. Then you hit OK and you're ready to go. So the next thing you want to do is you want to drag in an MP4 that you made in Premiere or Windows Movie Maker or whatever you use. You just want to make sure there are cuts that you want to datamosh. Then you save it. And you're going to want to indicate that this is the first of two. I usually call it D1 because there's going to be a second step. Now this bit takes a while. Once it's done, it'll let you know with a little boop, it's done. And then you want to close out of this project. And you're going to drag in that AVI file that we just made back into it. And you have to change the video output to copy for this second phase. Once you've done that, now it's time for the advanced part. You want to hit up on the arrow pad to go to the first iframe. Then you want to mark in, right arrow key, mark out, and then hit X to delete the iframe. It's going to tell you that you're going to corrupt the file, which is literally what we're trying to do. And then you just repeat that process until there are no more iframes. Except for the iframe at the beginning, that one has to stay. But no other iframes besides that first frame. Then you want to save again, and this time you're going to call it D2. And it's going to tell you that it's going to be corrupt, which is exactly what we want. Now to play this AVI file, you're going to want to use VLC. It's free, download it, and then you just drag in the clip, and you can see right at the cut, boom, it's a Datamosh. Example clip that I use is not the best, so here's a quick look at one that I did earlier where I used a bunch of better clips for this purpose. Like I said before, it's free, it's pretty basic, but it is technically doing it. If you want to export this in a way that you can use in Premiere or something, you want to go to Convert and Stream, drag in the AVI file, you want to set it to MP4, MP4 again, and then keep original audio track. Hit apply, save it to your destination, let it go the whole way through. If you try to play it before that goes the whole way, it won't work. And then boom, M4V, it'll play in Premiere. I learned just by doing some research that this woman from Pittsburgh, Evelyn Nesbit, became famous like Gibson girl. Her husband, Henry Thaw, killed her ex-lover. Both of them are abusive, like SA type, awful, horrible people. But her husband killed this other guy, and that's crazy. It was considered the quote crime of the century. And then I just like, she's buried in Holy Cross. So I went there and it's like, oh yeah, this is all that's left of like this famous person who had lived this crazy, traumatic, horrible, very public life. And like, this is what's left. So I've been thinking about that kind of stuff a lot lately. All right, but I know you're probably ready to do some more advanced stuff. And for that, I prepared a very brief tutorial for the next tier of datamoshing. That is, of course, Datamosh 2. So for this tutorial, you need Adobe After Effects, and then you also need this plugin. It's called Datamosh 2, and it costs $60, so hope you've been saving. The next thing I do is I cut something up in Premiere and then I dynamic link it to After Effects. You don't have to do this. You can export something from another software and bring it into After Effects, or you can just bring the footage right into After Effects. I just think it's easier to edit in Premiere, so that's what I do. You want to save it as something that you'll be able to find later in case you want to update this project, and then you go Windows, Extension, Datamosh 2. Inside Datamosh 2, there's this remove frames, and what this allows you to do is at the cut points, put in a remove frames marker. Now this does the same thing that avidemux does, in that it's indicating that you want to remove the iframes in between the cuts. So you hit Datamosh, it renders, and then it moshes. And so once it's done, it'll say you just moshed, obviously, and then this is what it looks like with the iframes removed. Now, since we are using the raw footage and not an exported MP4 that has compression, the compression squares are smaller, and so the detail of the effect looks finer. Then what makes Datamosh 2 a more premium product is it has all of these vector, I think they're called vector, basically they're presets that affect the pixels in different ways. You can do them on their own or in addition to the iframe removal. And since we haven't made any changes to the actual picture, we're going to use the previous render so that it doesn't have to re-render the image. It's just going to Datamosh. And then you'll see here that by adding that effect, it's actually moving the pixels as it moshes, and it creates really interesting effects. And this is something that you can sort of experiment with and see what looks good, what looks bad. At first was just laying as many effects on as possible, and I was creating these really interesting kind of graphical effects that absolutely destroyed the image, which is cool, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And so I just sort of tried different variations, different amounts of data moshing, different shots next to one another, and you sort of learn which ones look really good, which, you know, sequences create really interesting effects, and you slowly string them together to create a finished product. Like here, I just did a lot, and this is a really, really cool effect, but again, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, and you just sort of experiment. So why am I telling you all of this random shit? Well, in experimental film, there's this thing that I think is really interesting. I know not everybody thinks it's interesting, but I think it's very interesting, where the reason for doing something, the reason for choosing specific methodologies and materials and stuff like that holds a lot more weight than it does in traditional media, because at the end of the day, you're just creating something that's random pixels and colors, and there's no real narrative necessarily in the final product. And so you infuse the art, the project, whatever you want to call it, with these intentionalities. So for example, I've been thinking a lot about temporality, and I've been going to cemeteries, and I've been ruminating over all of those things. And so by using footage from cemeteries and using the iconography of death in cemeteries and tying in Evelyn, Nesbit, and all of that stuff, you create a meaningful substance to what is essentially just pixels being vomited out by the computer. And so I'm just sharing my thought process. Obviously, if I just posted the short film, you wouldn't know that. And I think there's something to be said about the allure of that as well. But that's just my thinking. And now you get to be a part of that. Dun dun dun. I think that was probably good. Be sure to check out some of my other videos if you want to see other things that are not related to this in any meaningful way, because there's no through line in my channel. It's just whatever is interesting to me, and maybe that'll be interesting to you. Back to you at the studio.